Mhm. Wonderful.
How long does it last?
Uh,
Menopause.
well, it varies. That's the thing. Well,
Hmm.
so the menopause really just means the cessation of menses, right? So you once you stop, but that whole cluster of things that I mentioned that go usually most women you're we have what's called premenopause. So before you actually stop, your menses has ceases to exist. You'll start to have little things here and there.
Hmm.
So vary, they may be very mild, but which usually it could be maybe the hot flashes or maybe the mood swings, let's say, or sleep disturbances where you
Hmm.
just can't. And then you go through the change that actual, you have to go 1 year, 12 months with no cycle. And then you can say you're in menopause. Let's say you go 14 months and then you start bleeding. People will say my period restarted. No, that's called postmenopausal bleeding. It's
Okay.
abnormal and you should consult with a professional, a health,
Mm.
you should consult with
Yep.
your doctor to
That
have
check.
that evaluated, right? And that's usually with a maybe an ultrasound or even what we call an endometrial biopsy. And I was just reading an article today, recertifying, and if for Black women, it could be can't like if you're going postmenopausal bleeding. A lot of people say, "Oh, I started my period," or no, that's abnormal bleeding.
Mm.
And some ultrasound because Black women have fibroids or higher can miss cancer like 5 times because it can
Mm.
hide behind them. So it's not
Mm.
something that you should take lightly or you should play with. If it
Yeah.
occurs, then you want to definitely go and have that evaluated. I hopefully it will be nothing, but you don't want to just bypass it and say, "Oh, this is just bleeding that occurs." It could typically be abnormal, and it may that's
Mm.
your body's way of telling you there's something wrong.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, getting back to, I mean, it's no set time for how long it could. There's some. I mean, I've had women in their 80s like on hormones and like. And the other thing about hormones is you should start them within the first 5 years. It's right. The current recommendation is to start it within the first year up to 5 years. And like if you're 7 years out, it's not recommended to start hormones. But if you're in the first year, 1, 2, 3, up to 5, you can start it, and
Okay.
usually you don't take it for more than 5 years if you want to opt for hormones.
Mm.
But it just varies. So for some people, it could last, maybe a couple of years. Some people it could last 10 years.
Mhm.
It just,
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
Now, why is it that you don't want to start hormones after the 5 years?
Well, because it's like a risk benefit ratio. So they've done studies out there. There were different studies done, like examining hormones in women of a certain age without medical problems and some with. So the studies just found that the most benefit was gained within those first 5 years.
Mm.
Outside of that, then you start talking about side effects of hormones. The worst, the obvious, like even with the birth control pill, it could you may not have any side effects, but the worst side effects with a birth control pill that you're taking to prevent pregnancy are blood clots, heart attacks, and strokes. Now, is the incidence is not very high, but obviously people get blood clots on birth control. So with hormones, it is if you're taking hormone replacement therapy, those there are risks of things like blood clots, heart attacks, strokes. They're very minimal. I mean, and I don't know the exact like off the top of my head, but once you don't want to be 80 years old starting the first time. That's just not
Mhm. Mhm.
safe. Yeah.
Right.
Or let's say 70. You had your stop your period at 50 and now at 65 you want to take it. No, you would take it either between 50 and 55, and usually you're not going to take it for more than the 5 years because that's just
Mm.
safety. That's what's recommended. Just
Mhm.
and get the benefits to relieve your symptoms, but not putting yourself at a higher risk of
Higher risk.
adverse events.
Mhm.